As a professor of finance, as a lifelong learner, as a doctorate in the world of financial behavior, behavioral economics, what would you say to our audience and our beyond our audience, to anybody who was giving their ear to hear the gold that you have to deliver about strategies, ideas, mindset on how to improve or expand or or be on a pathway to have power around financial security? It's a big, broad question, but what comes to mind?
Well, there's a very fascinating finding of people who work on issues of well being. There's kind of a U curve that is our well being tends to go down from
Like the letter U.
exactly. And it is one where life well being declines from sort of adulthood, early adulthood until middle age, until say 50s, and then begins to go up. And I know it's true from my experience because my well-being now is higher than it was when I was in my 40s and 50s. And it has to do with aspirations and where we are relative to our aspirations. And so when you are in your 30s and 40s and 50s, you are still struggling. Your aspirations are much higher than where you are. You are trying to earn more money. You are trying to move up in your career, to move from being an assistant professor to associate professor to a full professor. All of that, while you are doing that, is painful. And so I'm not suggesting that people just be happy with what they have. People, I think, are striving and should strive. I strove. The
Yeah.
reason I am where I am now is not because I was lying on my back doing nothing. It is because I worked really hard to get my papers written, to get them published in good journals, and so on. But there is a point where you have to say, I have reached what I want, say, in terms of my career. Now it is time for me to have goals in terms of, say, volunteer work, in terms of sharing what I have with the community. That really is what is important to do. And so it really, I'm not going to be condescending and saying, yeah, just be happy. No, you cannot be happy unless you have a job where you can earn decent income, where you have the ability to support your family, where you develop hobbies, where your health is good, and so on. And just being able to manage that transition and know that things are going to be better. As I mentioned, that is, I was not the fastest one in high school. It did cost me affection, but I said, Mayor, hard as it is, and it was painful. It is painful when a
Yeah.
girl turns you down for a date, but I comforted myself, thinking, as it turned out to be true, that those things will change in the future. And of course, that is why I did what I did. This is why I came to the United States to study. This is why I struggled at work. This is why I struggle in family, as I mentioned, with a daughter who is living with mental illness. But you come to kind of lower your aspiration in some way, So my daughter wanted to be, my older daughter wanted to be a lawyer, and it would have been wonderful if she were, but she is not. But as I said, she says, I love you. And she takes care of herself, and she takes care of her home and her husband. And kind of knowing that that is enough, that really is sort of the art of life.
Yeah.
And I hesitate because I'm afraid that I'm going to cross the line into condescending, into saying, here's what you do and you're going to be happy and have high well-being. That is not so. Everyone struggles, and we at some point just learn to live with what we have when we are at my age or a bit younger. But you
Yeah.
cannot give up that drive, the
Yeah.
aspirations when you are young.
Yeah, I think the undercurrent is the drive and the aspirations and the goals and that future to live into. And being aware, again, I say educated, if you can read and write and reason at a minimally adequate level, that there is going to be suffering and there is going to be difficulties and there is going to be discomfort. And it's just part of the human condition. And that's part of the pathway. You have an aspiration, you want to get where you are to where you're headed. There will be discomfort along the way. And I doesn't sound condescending to me at all. It sounds almost Buddhist, like, look, but really it sounds like, look, there is suffering and let's accept that at a baseline level. And it doesn't mean that everything's roses and butterflies and rainbows, but at the same time, you're going to have fantastically beautiful, fulfilling, joyful moments. And it can be everything all at once, which brings me back to your book, which is this holistic approach to this financial well being, which is just so important for not only our listeners, but for everybody.